Thank you for joining us for Working Through the Word, a ministry of the Richmond Church of Christ. Let's join our pulpit minister, Mike Johnson, as he brings today's lesson.
The church is the beautiful bride of Christ. In Revelation 21, we see a scene that describes the bride coming out of heaven. This is the New Jerusalem coming down. The Hebrew writer in chapter 12, verses 22 and 23 said that the New Jerusalem is this same group known as the Church of the Firstborn. In the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, Paul writes about the relationship between a husband and wife and how each of them should function in that role. And when he closes, he says, "This is a great mystery, but I am speaking about the church." This morning, we need to understand that the church is the bride of Christ. And he calls himself, in each one of the gospel accounts, he calls himself the groom. Because he asks the question that came on the subject of fasting. Can the friends of the bridegroom fast as long as the groom is here? But there's coming a day when they will fast. And in that moment, Jesus was saying, "I am the groom, and my bride is the church." The church that he told Peter, "I'm going to build," Matthew 16, verse 18. And this church, his bride, with which he is the groom, we can be a part of that beautiful relationship with Jesus Christ. This year I've been considering a few of the other Beatitudes in Scripture. We know the famous ones in Matthew chapter 5. But there are other places in Scripture where God said, "Blessed are these people." And today, blessed are those who are of the family of God, those who are the church, those who are part of the bride of Christ, over which he is the groom. Think with me today of the beautiful relationship that now exists and the one that is yet to come. Now, in thinking about this text from Revelation 19, where he talks about a marriage feast, I was thinking about how do marriages happen and the feasting time throughout Scripture. How did it occur? When God wrote these passages, he was writing at a time that referenced things that were happening then. What were marriage feasts like? Most of them were week-long celebrations ending with a feast. I went through 2 of those that we had to plan, and I don't think it was a week-long celebration. It was about a 6-month headache. best I remember. And that celebration time was hard to enjoy in some ways because of all the work that had to be done. But can you imagine for a week, nonstop celebration of this marriage? It was a community affair. A couple of parables that Jesus told, recorded in Matthew 22 and one in Luke 12, describe a man who had thrown a marriage feast for his son. And all of this was taking place, and he sent his servants and said, "Now go out to the community and bring in those who were invited." It was apparently a pretty big deal to be invited to a marriage feast. There was an order to which people would sit. There were those who were closest to the couple, and they sat at the closer to the places of honor. And then the less connected you were to the couple, you spread out in the house or in the venue away from them. So it was a big deal to be invited. In this parable, Jesus tells of the man who sent out his servants, and when they went to get them, a whole bunch of them didn't want to come, and he couldn't believe it. He said, "Fine. Then you go out into the highways and the hedges and the back parts of society, and you just drag them in. You bring them in because I made this big feast, and we're going to have people here." So the marriage feast of that time was a community affair. And in this community affair, there was plenty of wine and food. That was their staple. I don't believe we are intended to say that all of these people were drunk for a week. That was just the way they drank because their water was no good and they had to have something to drink. I'm not sure that there were that many people who were drunk all the time, but I know this, in that week-long celebration, you could eat and drink continuously. They had made great preparations. John 2, the first sign that Jesus gave of his ministry and what he's going to do was at a wedding feast when they ran out of the wine, and Jesus made some miraculously from vats of water. That's how they did things. Oftentimes, during the week, they would have different sessions, and they would have sessions for the women over here and for the men over there. You see that in the book of Esther. When Esther was married to the king, they had these celebrations, and she would be with the women for a while, and he would have the men, and then they would come back together. That same idea happened when Samson, a judge of Israel, when he was about to get married. We see the feast happening, and we see his time with the men of that area where he was marrying this woman. So the community eating and drinking, sometimes in groups of men and women, and it was a week-long thing. Now, what you knew at the end of the week, the couple was going to show up. They're coming, but you don't know when. The time of the feasting was such, and the week was such, that you just waited all week long, and somewhere toward the end, the couple was going to show up. Most of the time, it happened at night. And then you recall Matthew 25. And Jesus tells a story of a wedding feast. And there were 10 bridesmaids, if you will. And they were attending and waiting on this situation all week long. And it came down to the time when they thought the bride and the groom were coming. And we know that it was at night because 5 of those had enough oil to keep their lamps going, but 5 had run out of oil and their lamps were not burning. Because when it was time for the bride and groom, there was a great processional led by those carrying the light to bring them to the feast place. You had to be ready. They didn't know when they were coming. No exact time was set. But the last event, when it was all finished and all completed, the groom took his new bride to the house that he had prepared for the 2 of them. That's what happened with Jacob, with Rachel and Leah. It's what happened with Isaac when Rebekah came to him. The husband prepared this place, and she came to be with him. Our wedding celebrations are not just exactly like that, are they? We had a really good event last night for Jonathan and Julia, honoring their wedding together with a big feast. They called theirs a grazing. Best terminology I've ever heard for a place to eat. Wouldn't that make a great buffet restaurant? The grazing table. Wow. We do things differently, but basically the same. And when you think of this marriage feast and this marriage time and this marriage supper, it's not a whole lot different. But you see, in a spiritual sense, we turn to our text of Matthew 19, and we find there that the marriage supper is coming. You better get ready. The marriage supper. This text is in the context of the book of Revelation. Unless we understand the generic layout of the Revelation to get the point, we might miss it. Starting in chapter 4 through about 5 or so, we see the Lamb bringing redemption to the people who are in need. Starting in chapter 6 and going through about chapter 9, we see the people, those who are assembled in the heavenly realm, who have been there for a long time, and they're waiting, and they're around the throne of God, and they are enjoying what is happening there. Starting in chapter 10 to about chapter 18, John writes to Christians of that day and all of the things that they are having to experience, the tribulations and the trials, and how tough it is under that empire. And then we come to chapter 19. And he gives this beautiful scene, and he gives those people this great hope. For he says, there is coming a marriage feast. It is, in fact, a community affair. Verse 6, I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, as the sound of many waters, and as the sound of mighty thunderings. There's a great multitude gathered here. It is a community affair. This feast, this spiritual feast, is a community of people. It is a community and a family of people who have gathered together for the Lord, the groom. These people are waiting. They're waiting for the rest of the community to join them. Meanwhile, notice the music and the worship has already begun. Calling to mind the week-long celebration of music and dancing and laughter of those Bible times. We see that same concept in heaven as these people are rejoicing and praising God and worshiping together, this community, a family married to the groom. And yet, not everybody's there. They're still waiting. The invitations have been sent. Chapter 22 and verse 17. The Spirit and the bride say, "Come." And let him that is athirst come, and let him drink of the water of life freely. This feast has an unlimited banquet, an unlimited opportunity to drink. And the invitation for you and for me and for everybody has been issued. But he hasn't said when he's coming. Chapter 22 and verse 12, I am coming quickly. This word quickly should better be translated suddenly. Quickly is more of a term that we use to talk about the at hand, the immediacy. It might be very soon. Suddenly means at any moment it could happen, without any warning, without any preparation to say, oh, here it comes, get ready, other than to say, he's coming. You better get ready. Those bridesmaids who were not prepared, they didn't have enough oil to keep their lamps burning for the entire waiting time, missed it. When the groom finally came and he's coming in his procession and they have run off to find more oil, they came back and everybody had already gone into the banquet hall and the door was closed. Let us in. No. You weren't prepared. You had an invitation, but you didn't take it seriously enough. I'm sorry. You're out. Jesus is the groom of the bride. The bride is his church. And you and I have a chance and an opportunity, having been issued an invitation. Come. There's a great feast coming. This is a peek into the portals of heaven of the final marriage supper of the Lamb. Just like in our day, or their day, the groom showed up. And everybody came in to the place to eat supper together, to celebrate the finality of the wedding. What a great event that's going to be. And it will have happened because the groom had made preparations for his bride. John 14. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions, dwelling places, houses. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. The groom is right now preparing finally to take his bride to the prepared place for eternity. It is hard for us to understand eternity because we are time-bound people. And we think of everything that has a beginning and has an end. There's birth and death all around us. But when this marriage supper commences, all of that will be done. Nothing will ever be changed. That's where the bride and the groom will be forever. As we close, think about the Song of Solomon. A writing in the Old Testament dedicated to the love of a husband and a wife. And in chapter 2, the young lady says in poem to her husband-to-be, he invites me in to his banquet table, and his banner over us is love. God's banner over his church is love. And he loves each of us and all of us so much that he wants us finally to go with him to that prepared place. Are you ready? Are you prepared? We sing at preschool, "This little Christian light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." Do you have your light burning? Do you have what is needed to keep it burning until the time the groom comes, whenever that might be? Or will it catch you suddenly? Not ready, unprepared, and left outside? To be born into the family of God, John 3 and 5, of the water and the Spirit, you can be a part of that church that Jesus already has married. And in baptism, you're cleansed, made pure, like the vision of the bridegroom in the white, or the bride in the white dress. And if you're not prepared, or if you're prepared and you've let it slip, you can come back today and assure yourself among the number of those at the marriage supper of the Lamb. Can we help you today while we stand and sing together?
We hope that you enjoyed today's broadcast, brought to you by the Richmond Church of Christ. We are located at 1500 Lancaster Road in Richmond, Kentucky. We meet at 9 a.m. each Sunday morning for Bible class, followed by our morning worship service held at 10 a.m. Our Sunday evening service is held at 6 p.m. Our midweek Bible study is held on Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have Bible classes available for all ages on Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings. If you are in the area, we would love to have you as our honored guest. If you're looking for a home church, we would love to make you part of our family here in Richmond. We hope this has been a blessing to you and pray that you have been strengthened and encouraged. Have a blessed day.